There we go. Excellent. Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30, so we'll make a start. Welcome to today's planning meeting of the 27th of April, 2026. I'd like to welcome members of the public, councillors and officers to this meeting. My name's Martin Brooke and I'm the chair of the planning committee. Just like to note that we are recording this meeting. And speakers, please ensure you use your microphone when speaking and turn them off when you've finished. Please also ensure that your mobile phones and electronic devices are turned to silent. We're not expecting a fire alarm testing today. In the event of an evacuation, please leave by the nearest exit and gather in the car park next to the library opposite Tesco's. Should members of the public need to use the facilities, they are located through the doors to the right of the security. In accordance with the Constitution, members of the public who have registered to speak will be permitted to do so when I invite them by myself as the chair. The clerk has confirmed those who are entitled to speak. Please note that attendees are not permitted to approach committee members or council officers or distribute documentation to the committee during the course of this meeting. To allow the meeting to proceed in an orderly manner, attendees are requested to remain silent throughout. Any disturbance may result in the meeting being adjourned and individuals being removed from the room. Each application will be following the following order. Number one, the planning officer will present the submitted application and will outline the proposed recommendations in full. Number two, any speakers registered to speak on the application will be invited to address the committee. This will be taken in the following order: speakers against, neighbourhood forum representatives, any councillors who are not members of the committee, followed by speakers in support of the application. All speakers will have a maximum of 5 minutes each to address the meeting. Following that, there will be questions that the members will be able to ask the planning officer who's responsible for the application. Once questions from the committee have concluded, I will then open up for a debate. At the conclusion of that debate, I will seek a proposer and a seconder for the application. The proposal must be in full and include all information such as conditions or reasons. I will then confirm to the planning officer if they wish to enter into a period of summing up. Members, if at any point you leave the meeting, for any reason during the consideration of any application, you'll be unable to vote on that application. Apologies.
We have none, Chair.
Thank you very much. Minutes for our last planning committee meeting, which were held on the 2nd of March 2026. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Paignton, seconder Councillor Tolchard. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Moving on to declarations of interest. Firstly, do any members of the planning committee have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest on any of the items on today's agenda? Please raise your hand. No. Moving to same question to the officers. Any pecuniary or non-pecuniary?
Yes, Chair. I have a family connection to item 6, Sherwell Valley Primary School.
Thank you very much.
So I shall take no part in the questions and debate.
Thank you very much. Do we have any urgent items?
No, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move into the main part of today's meeting. Item number 5. This is to consider an application for Unit 12 to 12A Torbay Trading Estate, New Road, Brixham. Application number is P/2025/0760. The clerk has confirmed those who have been registered to speak upon the entry to this meeting. I therefore ask Emily Elliott to introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the application before you, I have a quick update which I've handed every member of the Planning Committee a paper copy of some additional correspondence we have received since the publication of the committee report. To surmise, we've received a response, two responses in fact, almost a duplication, one slightly shorter, one longer, from Safe Sustainable Travel Torbay, stating that they're broadly supportive of the proposal and provide comments on car parking, cycling infrastructure and junction design and pedestrian priority. In terms of the application, it's for the redevelopment of the former Jewson site, consisting of the demolition of the existing commercial building and the construction of a flatted development comprising of 23 two-bedroom flats at Unit 12, 12A, New Road in Brixham. Just to familiarise ourselves with it, I've popped the laser pen on, so we've got New Road running to the north of the application site outlined in red. We have the petrol station of Sainsbury's to the left-hand side, and we've got the remainder of Torbay Trading Estate, which you can see me roughly outlining here. Before you is an aerial imagery of the application site, indicated with the yellow arrow. The application site is located to the southern side of New Road, and the building has been extended over the years. The site forms part of a former large paint manufacturing facility, and the western flank has a large dominating wall which separates the frontages of the application site with the adjacent residential uses. The application site is located approximately 300 metres to the west of the designated Brixham Town Centre, but is within an established area of mixed commercial and residential use. Residential properties are to the north and west of the application site, whilst commercial businesses are to the east and south of the application site. The site is allocated in the neighbourhood plan as a housing site for 20 affordable units. The site's within the sustenance zone and landscape connectivity zone associated with the South Ham Special Area of Conservation. The site is partially designated as Flood Zone 3, and the remainder of the application site is within Flood Zone 1 and a critical drainage area. The application site is adjacent to the Brixham Town Conservation Area and is approximately 15 metres away from a Grade 2 listed building. Before you now is the existing layout, and as you can see, the existing vehicular access is where my laser pen is pointing to, and we have also pedestrian access from this point, as well as a secondary access from the private service lane, which serves other units also within the Torbay Trading Estate. And there's another, when we went on site, we could see that vehicles can enter the building also from this upper area. Here are the existing floor plans. So the site is currently occupied by a tenant, and it has been operating as a car garage. And here are the existing elevations. So you can see that the building has been extended and adapted over the years, which detracts from its original Art Deco style facade. Here are some existing sections. So we've got some through the site. So the layout plan with my laser is showing where they have been taken from. So the top section is an east to west. We've got the Torbay Trading Estate, and then we can see the lower terrace of residential units on New Road and part of the terrace of the residential that sits behind on that private access. The bottom section is showing south to north. The commercial unit is higher than the application site, which you can see up here. And then on the opposite side over here, we've got the other side of New Road where we've also got terraced residential uses. So here is the proposed layout. The proposal includes 12 unallocated parking spaces, 4 within the frontage, so over here, and then 8 within the ground floor, which you can't see on this plan, but you'll see a little bit later on. The proposal includes an element of landscaping to the frontage, which will assist at softening the built form. And then moving to the floor plans, we've got 2 pages of these. So the top left is the ground floor. Moving over to the right-hand side, we've got the first floor. And then we have the second floor on the bottom left. That ground floor plan showing you the 8 parking spaces within, and also the cycling storage, bin storage, and then access internally within the building via stairs and a lift. And there is the other floor plan, so of the third floor and then the fourth floor. So that's the top level of the building. These are the proposed elevations. So this is the north elevation. This is the elevation that you will be seeing when you're travelling along New Road. And we've got two versions. So we've got a marked up version with colour and some trees and things to kind of soften what it will look like. But the plain elevations are on the top. You can see from there that some of the units have balconies. When we move on to a few more units in a second, you'll see how the building steps back as it gains height. But importantly to note on this elevation, given the briefing, this clearly shows the height. So this is the height of the terrace of the residential along New Road, and the terrace behind those that front New Road in relation to the proposed built form. So you can see that front terrace is midway up on the second floor, because we've got ground floor, first floor, second floor, and that other terrace behind is approximately the same height as the third floor of the building. Moving over to the left-hand side, we've got the Torbay trading estate, and here you'll see similar height comparison between the industrial units, albeit the lift over on is ever so slightly higher than the established roof height there. In terms of measurements, I did mention at the briefing, so the proposal's got an approximate height of 16.4 metres and an approximate width of 22 metres. The width and the depth of this building is the same as that of the extant planning permission that was granted last year at Planning Committee. And the difference in height, the previous extant permission was 12.6 metres, and this one is now 16.4, so just slightly less than 4 metres increase in height. The proposed materials include recessed colour render panels reflecting the site's history as a former paintworks, and you can see those behind these windows on the principal elevation just underneath. Here is the proposed east elevation. So as mentioned, it would have a depth of approximately 27.6 metres. And this elevation is what can be seen when we're travelling along the private access road, which we did on our committee site visit previously. The material palette includes a stone clad plinth to the ground floor, a white rendered finish to the first, second and third floors, and a hung slate cladding to the fourth floor. This is the rear elevation of the building, so the southern elevation. So this backs onto part of the Torbay trading estate. And then this is the proposed west elevation. So this is the facade that the adjacent residential uses would see. The proposal has been carefully considered to ensure that the privacy of adjacent neighbours has been maintained, and the committee report details several different planning conditions, including obscure glazing, privacy screens and restrictions on the flat roof kind of terraced areas that you can see where my cursor is roughly showing you here, and again on the more technical drawing above. Here are the proposed sections. So again, we've got two sections through the site. So we've got the opposite side of New Road over here, New Road that we travel along, and then we've got part that you can see of the adjacent Torbay Trading Estate unit, the proposed development with the Torbay Trading Estate running along the back too. And then here we have a section through the building instead. So this is showing to the left-hand side the units, and you can understand the height comparison and means of access around from the layout to the pedestrian access. I thought it'd be helpful to just quickly give members a refresher of what the building looks like. So this is from New Road, and that's that private access road we were talking about, where there's the secondary access point and pedestrian point. As part of the proposal, as mentioned, this wall is to be removed, and here is an adjacent residential use along New Road. That's within the application site. And another one again of the private access, giving a bit more of a glimpse further up afield. And there's that secondary access point that vehicles can get into. These are the key issues and material considerations that have been detailed within the committee report. And therefore, the recommendation is approval subject to the conditions as outlined within the committee report, with the final drafting of the conditions delegated to the Divisional Director of Place Strategy, the completion of a unilateral undertaking in relation to the South Ham Special Area of Conservation Berry Head Recreation Zone, and the resolution of any new material considerations that may come to light following Planning Committee to be delegated to the Divisional Director of Place Strategy, including the addition of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. If members of the Planning Committee are minded to refuse the application against the officer recommendation, final drafting of the reasons will be delegated to the Divisional Director of Place Strategy in consultation with the chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Elliott. I now call on Ms Jo Sampson to address the meeting against the application. Ms Sampson, you have 5 minutes and the clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute remaining.
It's not. I just want the PowerPoint up on there. Isn't there? Perfect, thank you. Great. Good evening, councillors. My name is Jo Sampson and I'm speaking on behalf of the New Road community regarding the proposed development of the flats on the former Dewson site. A significant proportion of local residents have objected to this proposal, particularly in relationship to the additional height of the building. There is very little support for this aspect of the scheme, reflecting a strong and unified concern within the community. Residents of the new road are specifically opposed to the extra storey for a number of important reasons. So we're happy about the building that was actually proposed last year and that went through, but not the extra storey. Firstly, the proposed 5-storey building is not in keeping with the scale, height or character in the surrounding properties. It would appear overbearing due to its size and close proximity to existing residential homes and would dominate the immediate area in an unacceptable way. Secondly, the design includes windows and balconies that would directly overlook nearby homes and gardens, including properties across New Road. This raises serious concerns about the loss of privacy, a constant sense of being overlooked, and the resulting impact on residents' quality of life. It may also contribute to a perceived reduction in the property value for the neighbouring homes. In addition, the increased height would result in significant loss of natural light to nearby properties. Natural light is essential to a healthy and comfortable living environment, and a reduction in this would negatively affect residents' well-being. There are also serious concerns regarding parking and highways impact. New Road is already heavily congested as a main route into Brixham, and there is an existing shortage of parking in the area. Residents often have no dedicated parking and rely on limited on-street spaces in the surrounding roads. The proposal for 23 two-bedroom flats with only 12 parking spaces would significantly worsen these existing pressures, increasing congestion and placing further strain on the local infrastructure. Brixham is a picturesque fishing town, and its identity is central to both the community and its tourism economy. It is vital that new development respects and reflects this character. However, this proposal resembles a large block of flats that is out of keeping with the town's traditional maritime appearance. Given its prominent position forming one of the first impressions for visitors, it risks damaging the image and the appeal of Brixham and undermining the very qualities that make the town special. There is also a concern about precedence. Approval of a development of this height and scale could open the door further to further overdevelopment in the area. Over time, this could lead to a gradual erosion of Brixham's distinctive character and sense of place. In addition, there are already over 450 properties currently on the market in Brixham, many of which have remained unsold for extended periods. With a 17-unit development already approved, it is reasonable to question whether there is a genuine need for the additional 6 flats at this location. If more housing is required, alternative solutions, such as utilising existing empty homes, should be considered. To illustrate the impact of what we see today is an open view across the local area.
1 minute remaining.
However, the proposed development would replace this with a dominant 5-storey block of flats, significantly altering the character of the streetscape and surrounding environment. In conclusion, councillors, I respectfully urge you to give full and careful consideration to the concerns raised by many local residents. Please ensure that the rights to privacy and access to natural light and residential amenity are protected. I also ask that you consider the pressures on parking and infrastructure, the importance of sustaining tourism, and the need to preserve Brixham's unique character. Most importantly, I urge you to avoid setting a precedent for the excessive height and overdevelopment which could cause lasting harm to the identity of this town. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms Sampson. Committee members, I'll now invite you to ask questions to our planning officer. Please may I remind members questions should only cover matters not raised in the presentation. Are there any members who'd like to raise questions? Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just ask about the affordable housing element of this, which the developer said isn't viable. Now, when the developer did the plan before, it was for 17 properties and it was not viable at that stage. We've now put on an extra 6 properties. What does the planning officer know why it wouldn't be viable now? Because obviously there is the extra income that would come from these 6 properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Darling. As per the committee report pages 48 and 49, it highlights that the proposal would fall within the threshold to seek affordable housing where it's 15 units or more on a brownfield site. And as you mentioned, we have now got an increase in 6. Last time and this time, the applicant has provided viability information that has been independently assessed by Miller Commercial, which has then been thoroughly checked through by our affordable housing team. The information provided has basically concluded that the proposal remains unviable and therefore it is not viable to provide any affordable housing on-site or off-site as a contribution, and that conclusion has been accepted by the Council's affordable housing manager.
Can I come back to you, if I may, on that one as well? So the viability study has been seen by our affordable housing officer. Is there not a reason why that we as planning members do not see the viability document? Because I believe that now it is common for viability papers to be put within packs so that councillors can look at that viability study as well.
Thank you, Councillor Darling. I believe the viability information, some of it should be within the application file. I have also seen the viability information. Some of it, as it's commercially sensitive, can't be contained or be publicly viewable. But I've also reviewed that. So unfortunately, the scheme just presents itself and is concluded to be unviable.
I just feel a little uncomfortable that, you know, they've gone up in numbers quite significantly, but with still no affordable housing commitment. Thank you.
Councillor Strang.
The point once again has been raised about privacy concerns from the balconies on the side of the building overlooking the residents adjacent to this development. Can you just clarify what is being actually done to protect the privacy of those existing residential properties, please?
Thank you, Councillor Strang. As you'll see from the committee report within the residential amenity section and the end of the committee report with the planning conditions, several are suggested and recommended for committee in terms of privacy screens on the balconies to the rear of the property, in terms of obscurely glazing some of the windows on that west elevation that you could see a second ago on the PowerPoint, and also, as before, putting restrictions to make sure that there's only the management and maintenance of those kind of open spaces, but they're not actually usable, they can't sit out in them, they can't enjoy that space. So again, like the scheme before, their privacy is maintained by several different planning conditions.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Tolchard.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your comprehensive report, and thank you very much to the New Road Community Group for presenting your thoughts so clearly, which centre really on the extension, the additional floor, and the impact that that might have. Can you just clarify that the additional storey is going to be set back, as it were, and can you clarify what the impact will be of that additional storey compared to the original application which we approved in terms of sort of natural light and the residential properties next door, the impact that that will have? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tolchard. If I go back a couple of slides, I can show you from the west elevation. So this elevation here, I wonder if I can be clever enough to, yeah, see, right. So you can see the ground floor here. So here's the edge of the front of the building, and then it steps back in to deliver the first, second and third floors with projecting balcony elements. And then as we reach the fourth floor, again, it's stepped back in to decrease the overall built form from New Road. So that hopefully answers your first question in terms of is the building set back? And your second question, sorry, I apologise, I've completely just forgotten what you said.
So the impact really of natural,
Oh.
of the light really,
Yeah.
sort of affecting the rear gardens or the rear space of the residential properties and also the front of those properties, because I think the front actually
Sorry.
the very large wall is going to be taken down, isn't it, or at least reduced considerably, so that remains the same as the original application. But I was just wanting to know what impact you think they will have on the rear space of those residential properties with the additional storey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tolchard. So the agent, Kay Elliott, who's the architect for the scheme, on both schemes has provided a sunpath analysis of both summer and winter for the extant planning permission, and then this one, so we did see it before. Unfortunately, whilst I've not included those in my slides, they are obviously publicly viewable documents. In terms of the impact, as you say, the reduction in the wall will help with the frontages. In terms of the rear, and it was noted in the previous committee report and this committee report, there will be a level of overshadowing to the rear garden spaces and some of the rear openings of those properties, albeit whilst it affects the immediately adjacent number 52, it will then travel on to the next property within the terrace. However, upon consideration and assessment of the application, we didn't think it was detrimental enough to warrant within the planning balance, given the housing land supply position for the council, that it would warrant a refusal.
Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. Ms Elliott, thank you for your very detailed report, as always. The 2 points that the public speakers raised in relation to the building being overly dominant and overlooking, you've in your report covered both of those. But a lot of your answer comes down to professional judgment. If this committee were to conclude differently to yourself, and we were in a position where there was a refusal, we've also refused previous applications in Brixham at Copythorne Road and also at St Mary's. I wonder if you could help us understand whether, seeing as both of those refusals were subsequently overturned at appeal, whether if we were to find differently to how you have in your report in relation to the building being overly dominant and overlooking, whether we would think we would have firm grounds, or whether you think we would simply have relatively weak ones that we would lose at appeal, please.
Thank you, Councillor Billings. So my committee report is my professional recommendation and my assessment of it. I have thoroughly gone through the development plan and the national planning policy with regards to this. I think you probably need to be wary of the extant planning permission. So this is slightly less than 4 metres taller. So in terms of it being overly dominant, you'd have to consider if that extra height, as I mentioned, the width and the depth are no different to the extant planning permission, so that would need to be carefully considered, and also within your assessment, my assessment of the scheme, the planning conditions have been recommended to aid and help the residential amenity to prevent the proposal from causing detrimental harm to the adjacent neighbours. So I guess I leave it up to you as to whether or not you disagree with my professional recommendation.
Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Emily, for a comprehensive report, as ever. And also thank you to Ms Jo Sampson for a series of points eloquently put, some of which have already been commented on in the last few minutes. The one which I just wanted some more guidance on was the question about genuine housing need in relation to properties apparently not selling. What's your view on the housing need of Brixham, would you say? And how much should we take that into consideration?
Thank you, Councillor Fox. The application is supported by consultation responses from both the Council's Principal Policy Planner and the Council's Affordable Housing Manager, which would have looked at mix and need and things like that, neither of which raised an objection or concern with the proposal before you. So we have assessed the application as 23 two-bedroom units. Likewise, previously we assessed it as 17 units that were also two-bedroom.
Councillor Paignton.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Emily, for your report. On page 43 of the report, I'm sorry, this is about parking provision. You quote Appendix F of the local plan requiring one-to-one car parking spaces for apartment, and as you rightly said, there's 23 apartments, but only 12 car parking spaces provided. In that same paragraph, you go on to say the parking provision is considered to be acceptable, and it's that phrase I just would like you to elaborate on a bit more. Why do you think it's acceptable, given it's far shy of the Appendix F requirement?
Thank you, Councillor Paignton. So this application site, as mentioned, is within close proximity to Brixham Town Centre. As we're seeing within our town centres and nearby areas, we are seeing an increase in brownfield sites and an increase in residential units. Obviously, the constraints of being within an urban area means that sometimes we haven't got enough land for parking or outdoor amenity spaces, this being one. However, given the provision of 12 and the sustainable location of pay and display car parks, bus stops within very close proximity to the application site, the Highway Authority has also been consulted and has agreed that the provision is considered to be acceptable and that there should be a level of sustainable travel and transport within the future occupiers of the scheme.
Councillor Verdi.
Thank you, Chair. Just again, just following on from Nick's point on parking, I think with 23 flats, I think people will still have the extra cars and the lack of parking space. They may use local transport, get around locally, but generally most people will have cars to go further afield. So I think there is still not going to be enough parking spaces there. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Thank you, Councillor Verdi. As mentioned, we see many applications on brownfield sites within town centres and close to the town centres. There has to be an encouragement, and that's why we've got planning conditions for cycling infrastructure. And as mentioned, the site is considered to be in a sustainable location, and the Highway Authority have also concluded such. So whilst there's not the provision of 23 for one space per apartment, it's still considered to be acceptable by the statutory consultee.
If I just kindly ask the people in the public area to not speak whilst we are trying to ask questions, because without us hearing the answers, we can't make a right determination. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Further, talking about the loss of privacy and overlooking properties, I know within the structure you've got the privacy glasses and everything. Well, how do you achieve privacy if someone's standing on the balcony overlooking everywhere?
Thank you, Councillor Verdi. So actually I've still got the west elevation up at the moment. Let me just put my laser pen on for you. So there are proposed conditions to put privacy screens on here. If I just go back to the layout, you'll see that there isn't a residential dwelling directly behind. So the residential end of the terrace is this property here. This unit here that you can partially see in grey belongs to part of the Torbay trading estate. So this is not residential, a residential unit. It starts here. So if we've got the privacy glass on here, we've got very oblique views, if any, looking towards the side of this house. And in terms of all these small areas, which you can see on the top-down aerial here on the layout, the planning condition has been recommended to ensure that future occupiers don't use those as outdoor amenity spaces, that they're simply just a space that will be used for management and maintenance purposes, so for them to be cleaned. There are also privacy glass. If I just flick on a few more. The elevations also, the floor plans also say the same, that they're not to be used there. And then within that, the balustrading will also be obscurely glazed. So when people are in their living spaces, any views across will be hindered because the area here, this bit of balustrading, will be obscurely glazed too, along with several of the windows on the elevation.
Thank you. One more point. Joe Sampson showed a slide towards the end with the views towards Brixham and Brixham Sea. Now, would you say that is pretty much in scale with the existing properties around the new structure going up?
Thank you, Councillor Verdi. I very briefly had a look at it towards the end of the last working week last week. That image, I don't believe, has been taken from the design and access statement. I'm slightly unsure where that imagery has come from. Kaylee have provided some CGIs within the design and access statement, but it did not look like that image shown to you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tolchard.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the cycle storage, I know in the report and obviously lots of these points were raised in the previous planning application and have been addressed, so forgive me if this particular one was at that time. But the police raised the point about security of cycle storage because I think the original application had cycle storage, which was sort of fairly easily accessible. Was that actually addressed? I probably missed it in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Tolchard. So there's a planning condition, number 11, recommended at the end of the committee report, saying notwithstanding the approved plans prior to the first occupation of the development, hereby details of the proposed bike or store facility for 23 cycles should be submitted and agreed in writing by the local planning authority. The cycle storage facility shall be provided in accordance with the approved details prior to the first occupation and maintained and retained as such for the lifetime of the development. When we're looking at cycle storage as an officer, whether during the lifetime of the application or as a subsequent discharge of condition, we ensure that they are covered and secure, just to make sure that obviously the bicycles don't get damaged or vandalised or any theft takes place. So that would be adequately addressed within that recommended planning condition.
Thank you. And can I just mention, on the sort of late report that we've got here, there's mention towards the end about a financial contribution being considered under S278 towards sustainable travel. Has that been looked at all, or will it be looked at?
Thank you, Councillor Tolchard. So within the financial section of the committee report, there is a breakdown as to, I think it begins on page 52 and it goes the whole way down to about 54. It covers off different contributions. Within that, in terms of sustainable transport, it does say, as the units are still liable, we can't seek that financial contribution. So unfortunately, it would be nil for this scheme, but there is the recreational mitigation payment for the Berryhead, as mentioned, because it's residential accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Members, if you've got no more questions, I'm now going to open up for debate. Councillor Feddy?
Thank you. I just can't reconcile the parking really, because that area, there's absolutely no parking there. And I just don't see how the experts can say 12 parking spaces are sufficient for 23 flats. You know, modern households will have, you know, 2 cars maybe. So I just cannot reconcile that there is enough parking spaces there. Thank you.
Councillor Tolchard?
Certainly not for me to answer questions. Sorry, I do realise that. I think parking is a difficult issue within Brixham. I now live at Sherwell and I do have parking, but I lived for many years in the centre of Brixham and had to purchase parking space. It is a difficulty, but I think we've come across this before, haven't we? You know, in developments which are in essentially urban type areas, and it sort of matches with the thresholds, and hopefully, you know, there will be people occupying these flats who rely more on public transport. Although in the real world, I appreciate that doesn't always happen. The number 12 bus runs every 10 minutes past the front door, and it has done since I was a child. But as I say, it's not for me to answer those questions, and it's for me to raise questions. But you know, it is a common problem really in that kind of area.
Sorry, Councillor Paignton?
Thank you, Chair. I think this application, it's, we have a number of areas, policy areas. We obviously have to make our decision against applicable policies, and I think we have an application here that's weak and deficient in a few policy areas, parking, massing, and I share Councillor Darling's frustrations about, once again, we have a developer that's citing, independent viability assessments, and I would echo Councillor Darling saying if in the future that can be built into future reports as part of the format of officers' report about viability, because it keeps recurring, and perhaps I'm speaking more generally than in the specific case, but it would be really useful because it is so frustrating, especially when a developer has expanded on what they had originally envisaged and still cite viability. So I'd echo that request from Councillor Darling. But despite those areas where this is slightly policy weak, I fear we probably still don't have enough policy grounds to refuse. So it's, I'll see how the rest of the debate plays out, but I'm currently I feel this is one that slightly begrudgingly we're going to have to pass. We do need development, and we have issues with development in brownfield sites in the town centre locations, and that's just a fact. But yeah, that's where I am. I feel like we've probed and prodded some of the weaknesses, in terms of applied policy, but probably not enough to amount to refusing this one. That's where I'm currently at.
Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And going on and sort of reiterating what Councillor Paignton said, we do have a desperate need for housing, as identified by the Affordable Housing Officer. But again, this developer has shied away from being able to give a commitment for this. And it does concern me that, are we setting a precedent here? Because this isn't the first time this has happened. It's happening over and over again. But we do have that desperate need. And I would, I'm sort of going with this, that we do need it. But going forward, I think it would be nice to have more information about this, so we can see what the decision has been based on, that they are unable to contribute and provide this level, this affordable housing, which is so desperately needed. But as I say, as a whole, we are so lacking in our housing supply. Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
I think Councillor Billing, some time ago now, made the point that we have potential difficulties on appeal, and that this site, we need to obviously make the best of it. And I think the planning officer has, in a long comprehensive report, has suggested quite a few ways in which we can basically ameliorate the problems. And also we're down to now 1.65 years housing, even less than a couple of months ago when it was 1.7 something. It's going in the wrong direction. In terms of sustainable travel, I hear the points made about lack of parking, and I don't disagree with them. But I think it's interesting that we've got a note from a passionate sustainable travel advisor, and she has set out quite clearly why she thinks this development would be sustainable in travel terms. I think the points we're making here about the difficulty of parking will probably rule out almost every site in Brixham, in the centre of Brixham. There are genuine difficulties, but it is close to the number 12 Bush route, as Councillor Stolchard has said. It is close, walking distance. It's a difficult decision either way, but I feel there are a lot of factors in favour of this application.
Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. So, to me, this application comes down to the housing land supply position that we're facing. We've been tasked by government to deliver a 5-year land supply. We're currently, as Councillor Fox was identifying, we're down from a 1.75 years land supply to a 1.65 years, sorry, a 1.72 years land supply to a 1.65 years land supply. And it's that housing land supply position that has, in my view, coloured the way that appeal inspectors for applications such as Copythorne Road and also London St Mary's have allowed at appeal applications that this committee has refused. And they've chosen to allow at appeal applications that were in areas with very high levels of protection designations, such as area of outstanding natural beauty. Now, we can have a discussion at another time as to whether the housing requirement that we are expected to provide in Torbay is right and whether this level of housing provision is appropriate. But for the time being, it is the one that we're measured against. And in my eyes, therefore, it's not a case of whether this is a good application. The question we're being asked is, are there sufficiently strong reasons as to why it's a bad application such that we could refuse it and have that refusal stand up at appeal? And in my eyes, I'm not persuaded that we have sufficiently strong reasons to put the application in that second category. I hear the points that have been made on parking, but as Councillor Fox has suggested, they could fairly be made against a lot of applications on brownfield sites. The number 12 bus that passes through this, that passes past this site along New Road, is one of the most frequently bus services that there are in the country outside of a major city. I think Councillor Tolchard quoted every 10 minutes. I think my Sustainable Highways team would tell me it's a little bit less than 10. And so therefore, to me, I would like to have seen this application more sensitively designed. I'd like to have seen, for example, say some of the upper story set in further from the sides, not just set in from the front. But I'm not persuaded we've got grounds to refuse this. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Strang.
Having listened to obviously the residents' concerns and things, and asked my questions of Emily, I'm sufficiently satisfied that the privacy issues should be resolved. I'm also very mindful in Brixham about the concern of development on greenfield sites, and I think we have an opportunity here to utilise a brownfield site to provide some of, as Councillor Billings was saying, some of our requirement to build properties. And therefore, I think I'm probably in the mind to support the application going forward in order to protect our green spaces.
Well, colleagues, plenty of debate. Now need to come to a point of proposals and seconders. As we stand, we've got a recommendation for approval, subject to a range of conditions that have covered the privacy, overlooking, such like. So I'm looking for one of our members to put forward a proposal, please. Councillor Strang.
As I've just spoken in support, I suppose I can put forward a proposal to accept the officer's recommendation.
Got a proposal. Do we have a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Mike Fox. So go to a vote. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
So the application has been approved. We will now take a couple of minutes adjournment and be back in a couple of minutes. Thank you. Call back the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on now to item number 6. This is to consider an application for Sherwell Valley Primary School, Hawkins Road, Torquay. Application P/2026/0016. The clerk has confirmed those registered to speak. I therefore ask Emily Elliott to introduce the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is Sherwell Valley Primary School. The school buildings are modern in design with low-lying 1- and 2-storey buildings with flat and pitched roofs and rendered walls with areas of cladding. Access to the school is obtained via entrances on Upper Cockington Lane, where I'm showing you with my laser pen, and Hawkins Avenue. The site is located within Flood Zone 1 and a critical drainage area, and the wider site contains trees protected by a tree preservation order. This is an aerial photo of the site. You can see Upper Cockington Lane again to the left of the school, a bit more clearly, and Hawkins Avenue below to the south. This plan shows the existing site layout of the section of the school which is impacted by the proposed development. The plan now showing is the proposed layout plan. This is the full planning application for the installation of 5 air conditioning condenser units with associated cable trays and acoustic enclosure and the installation of external insulation. One of the air conditioning units will be located within the existing bin store located on the east elevation. This is pointed to by the far right arrow with the text. So over here, and you can see it just about here. 2 of the air conditioning units will be wall hung at high level on the west elevation. This is pointed to by the fairly central arrow with text. So that's here showing them those 2 little units there. And 2 other units will be installed at ground floor level on the west elevation, which will be enclosed by a new acoustic enclosure approximately 2.5 metres high, and this is pointed to by the far left arrow with the text. So again, over here. The proposal includes associated refrigerant pipework and electrical cabling and a galvanised steel cable tray above the units. The pipework will be routed across to a nearby gutter. This is pointed to by the arrow pointing towards the dashed line. So you can see the dashed line running along here. 150 millimetres of external wall insulation is also proposed to be installed around the building on the north, south, east and west elevations, which then features a silicone render finish. This plan shows the existing and proposed north and south elevations. It might not be that clear, I can't see if you can see it well or not, but the top 2 are the north, so existing is the left, proposed is on the right hand side, and then below we've got the existing south elevation, and below that we've got the proposed south elevation. The hash lines on the proposed elevations indicate the location of the proposed wall insulation, which I might just zoom in for you so you can see it hopefully a little bit clearer. You can see part of the building over here on the left, it's plain, and then the hashed lines are where the insulation will go. And then likewise, if I just scroll down to a section of the southern elevation, again, you can see before and then after. Just zoom back out. The bottom image shows the proposed south elevation, with the far left of the image showing the proposed 2.5 metre high acoustic enclosure. So again, and there's the acoustic enclosure here. The far right of the bottom image includes an arrow which points towards the existing bin store, which will house an air conditioning condenser. The top central annotation on the bottom image points towards the 2 high-level air condensers. So again, showing here, and the 2 higher ones are over here. I might just zoom in. Sorry, it is very small. But you can see them at high level up here, and then they're over here too. This plan shows the existing and proposed east and west elevations. So again, at the top, we've got the eastern elevation existing on the left, proposed on the right, and below we've got the existing west elevation and the proposed west on the right. Again, the hash lines on the proposed elevations indicate the location of the proposed wall installation. The top east elevation showed the bin store location, and the bottom image of the west elevation shows the new 2.5 metre high acoustic enclosure with 2 high-level air conditioning condensers behind. Now we've got some site photographs. So this is a photo taken of the south elevation. This image is also of the south elevation with part of the east elevation visible. The existing bin store, which is the lower rendered wall, so over here, is visible on the far right of the image. Oh no, you've lost my, let me put my laser back on, sorry. The bin store's over here. This image is taken of the west elevation, and this last image is of the rear north elevation. This slide lists the key material considerations which are considered in detail within the committee report. And this slide shows all the key issues in depth. This has weighed up the proposal against the relevant local plan and neighbourhood plan policies noted on this slide. So the officer recommendation is approval subject to the conditions as outlined in the committee report, with the final drafting of the conditions delegated to the Divisional Director of Place Strategy, the resolution of any new material considerations that may come to light following planning committee to be delegated to the Divisional Director of Place Strategy, including the addition of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. There are actually no registered speakers for this item, so I'm going to move straight into questions, members, to the planning officer. And as usual, remind you, questions should only cover matters not raised in the presentation. Members, any questions? No questions? I'll move into debate. Councillor Fox.
In Emily's report under residential amenity, she includes a letter or a comment from the environmental health officer on the one point that the objector has raised, which is on noise. That seems a pretty conclusive comment from the environmental health officer saying, on a worst case scenario, there's no conflict with a low impact criteria. And there's a strong indication that complaint and impact on the local amenity is unlikely. On the basis of that professional advice, I would be willing at the right time to recommend approval.
Councillor Billings.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is an excellent application. What we've got before us is external wall insulation that's going to make the building more energy efficient, accompanied by what I understand to be air source heat pumps located on the roof, which are hence the reference to refrigerants, and the distance between where they are located. If you think on a residential situation, it's very realistic that you could be a lot closer to your neighbour than you are here. It's quite a distance away, and so the condenser units being on the roof, to me doesn't cause me any concerns, and that's confirmed as Councillor Fox has highlighted. I think to help assist you and move the meeting on, I'm quite happy to propose approval. Thank you, Chair.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Verdi, second. So, colleagues, we are voting on the officer recommendation, which is approval, subject to the planning conditions outlined below, with the final draft of planning conditions delegated to the Divisional Director of Place Strategy, the resolution of any new materials consideration that may come to light following this committee meeting to be delegated to the Divisional Director of Place Strategy, including any additions of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. I declare this application as approved. Thank you. 2-minute adjournment because we've got to get another officer in place for the next items. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Moving on now to item number 7, which is considering an application for 3 Keysfield Road, Paignton, application number P/2025/0688. I call upon Jim Blackwell to introduce the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is 3 Keysfield Road, Paignton in Roundham. It's a rectangular plot on the north side of Keysfield Road in an area of residential character with a certain degree of holiday accommodation too. I'm just highlighting the site here, this rectangle. The site was subject to an outline application in 2021 that secured planning consent to redevelop the site to provide 14 apartments. The application was reserved only for landscaping for future consideration, and a reserved matters application was then made in 2023 securing an approved landscape detail. More recently, that outline consent was amended, securing minor modification to the building, which acts as a new planning consent for the development. This application is principally a procedural necessity, as the amended outline requires its own reserved matters approving this landscaping plan. This application principally replicates the landscaping detail approved by the committee in 2023 and the biodiversity features required pursuant to condition 2 of the outline consents. You can see here the site, and you've got these kind of 4 visual pegs to show you where the site boundary was leading on from the previous slide. You can see the development before the demolition. You now see the current site almost complete. You can see the approved layout plan with the parking to the front, gardens to the side and rear, and retaining the garden setting to the side of the building in here. You can see lots of protected retained trees along the front and side of the boundary plot. You can see an indicative image here showing parking, the boundary wall, the parking, the access, the building, the trees, and start to see the landscaping to the right of that image. And you can see the proposed landscaping scheme. So you've got the proposed trees to the south and east borders as expected, and established through the existing outline consent. The transition from the hard communal parking to soft landscape trees established through mixed native species hedging planting. This provides a positive frame to the two areas and softens the impact of the parking when enjoying the landscape grounds to the right of this, the landscape plan here. Around the building, the setting is largely laid out lawn, which provides usable communal outdoor space. There's also areas of herb planting. Along the rear, the northern, and the western borders, intermittent tree and shrub planting provides softening to the building and the plot, all mirroring the detail previously approved when considered by the Planning Committee back in 2023. So just to sort of show you there. Dealt with the matters in the report which cover landscaping trees, no objection from the tree officer, the ecology and diversity, which mirrors the previous proposals, no objection from the Devon County ecologist, and the new matters, the financial obligation required to mitigate the recreational impact on the Berryhead Sack. The applicants confirmed they are willing to provide the obligation via an upfront payment and unilateral undertaking following this. So the officer recommendation is that of approval, subject to the legal agreement just discussed and the resolution of any new material considerations that may come to light following Planning Committee to be delegated to Director of Place Strategy, including the addition of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. We have no registered speakers for this item, so going to move straight into questions for Mr. Blackwell from members. As usual, questions should only relate to matters not already raised in the presentation. Colleagues, any questions? Since there are no questions, I move to application for debate. Councillor Strang.
As this is described as a procedural approval for us, I think I'd be quite happy to propose that we accept the officer recommendation.
Councillor Penny.
I'm happy to second that.
Fine, so we have in front of us a proposal and we have the recommendations subject to any other thing, Councillor Fox?
I'm sorry, I should have said it publicly. What is there not to like in this application?
I certainly concur with you, Councillor Fox. So we have a proposer and seconder for the officer recommendation, which is approval, subject to the legal agreement to secure recreational presses mitigation on Berryhead SAC of £1,890, the resolution of any new materials consideration that may come to light following this committee meeting to be delegated to the Director Applied of Strategy, including the addition of any necessary further planning conditions or obligations. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
This application approved. Thank you. Moving on to the last item, item number 8, to consider an application for access track south of Limekiln Close, Paignton, application number P/2023/0143. I ask Mr. Blackwell to introduce this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to remove the 6-month time limit on the period for completion of a Section 106 agreement relating to a planning application from back in 2023. The legal agreement secures public access, rights across a proposed alternative route for the northern section of the Northern Access Route, known as the NAR, relating to the Inglewood housing development. The proposed route is an alternative one for the route linking Inglewood to White Rock, so it's extremely strategically important. The background to this previous resolution. It was considered back on the 18th of September 2023. The committee resolved the following: approval subject to a Section 106 legal agreement within 6 months of completion date to secure the heads of terms as outlined at the meeting. Also, the planning conditions outlined as committee report with the final drafting planning conditions delegated, as was then the divisional director, and the usual resolution of any new plant material conditions which come to light. There's clear reasoning for exceeding the 6 month time limit. It required it, which would have expired on the 18th of March 2024. However, it's taken this amount of time to reach a conclusion. It was completed the 5th of February 2026. This was really due to some incredibly complex land ownership issues and all the signatures required by all the owners of the relevant land. I'll come on to that complication shortly. The amendment of the resolution to remove the 6 month time limit is required to enable the decision to be issued for this application. And also, incredibly importantly, this also enables the issue of decision on the related application for 25 dwellings at the land of east of Limekiln Close, which is P2022-1173. That was dependent on this alternative route, but not subject to the same time limit on the Section 106 completion. So just to be clear on where we're talking, so I think many of you were at the site visit for the 25 units at Limekiln Close. That was in this pocket of land here. And I'll show you the layout soon, which winds its way around the back of these properties. And this proposal will take you through Limekiln Close here. And you can just see the blue lines to indicate where that would be. This plan shows the original approved route of the NAR in the outline permission for Inglewood, which was back in 2007 and then varied again in 2023. And the red lines indicate the section that this current proposal provides an alternative for. And here you can see the new shared NAR foot and cycleway, which is proposed along the route bound by the red line. The section between the two blue lines will have a new surface, 3 metre wide, approximately 80 metres length into the woodland area. It joins onto the approved route of the NAR and turns south to enter Inglewood. The grey areas show the unsurfaced path from the White Rock play area. So we're following this line, following the existing highway and footway, and avoiding this route through, which incidentally is also where the 25 units were approved for. Just sort of setting out the complication here. So land ownership changes between the green line, the red line, and the blue line. I won't go too much detail into that, but you can see where there's the adopted highway, the blue section known by Dealey Freed, and also by White Rock and under the council as well. So there's some complication there. So post the committee amendments to condition 2, that was the resolution that recommended the application in 2023 be amended post condition as summarised below. So that would lead to the condition 2, which is the materials method. Just noting that that was changing from the permeous surface to one that's acceptable for adoptable routes. So it's really important that we've got that inclusive route that's available in all weathers, it's durable, it's easier to maintain. And condition 2 still requires pre-commencement submission of details of the materials, but now includes the following revised words, which are clearly set out in the report. And also that's impacted by lighting. Obviously, the original scheme provides no lighting, but to achieve adoptable standards, some lighting is required. And the route runs through a back commuting and foraging area. So the scheme of lighting has been negotiated as part of this development to achieve a sensitive scheme that's acceptable to the county ecologist and the highway authority. And therefore condition 5 has been reworded to the following, which is available in the report. Important just to mention, again, safe, sustainable travel Torbay. We received comments on the 19th of April. Generally supportive of the proposal, support the provision of a sealed service, which improves accessibility all year round. The inclusion of lighting is welcome because of personal safety, particularly routes should feel safe and usable, especially for women and girls. Sufficient width and forward visibility are important for the shared use on a significant route like this, and the clarification is needed over whether it would be adopted. We've covered that in the previous slides and in the report, and the final design should avoid issues with standing water runoff. That's also in the report that this has been designed to adoptable standards to make sure those issues are resolved. So the recommendation, just to be completely clear, Just within the committee resolution, part 1 of minute 26 of the committee dated 18th of September 2023, remove that 6-month time limit for completion of section 106 and note the reworded conditions around materials and lighting, and also note the changes within the section 106 as detailed in the report. Those conditions all relate to the flood risk assessment, the materials, the bollards and curbs at the junction with Limekiln Close, ensuring we've got root protection for trees, the lighting and construction management plan. Here's the junction with Limekiln Close, looking back at the properties. Here's looking the other direction, with Limekiln Close looking back to the access track. You may remember we walked this area of the site back then as part of the committee site visit. And that distant view, that would make that connection along to the other site. Just proposed drawings, I won't dwell on these too long as they're actually difficult to read, but you can see some of the issues around the engineering drawing, shows the alignment, the widths, the spot heights, making sure we've got the gradients adjusted to adoptable standard for ease of mobility, and the retaining walls, which are shown in green black. There's some minor retaining walls to show there, given the topography of the site. And this is a close-up of the northern end that joins with Limekiln Close. And just a section just showing some of the gradients. They look slightly steeper than they are because the drawing's compressed, but they're no greater than 1 in 12. And you can see the construction detailing there, which overcomes the flooding and drainage and the surface comments that were made before. Set out the Paignton neighbourhood plans policy, the Brixham Peninsula neighbourhood plan, and the key issues and material considerations. And a really important point to just make that the applicants have indicated their intention to undertake these measures as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. Colleagues, there are no registered speakers for this item, so we'll move straight to questions for the planning officer. And as usual, questions should only cover matters not raised in the presentation. Questions? Councillor Billings.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Blackwell, can I just confirm for completeness? As presented on the slide, we've got a note to the post-committee amendment in paragraph 2. But this, we're not being requested to just simply note those, because it is the revised conditions that we're approving, isn't it? So it's both the time extension and the revised conditions.
Sorry if that wasn't clear. That's exactly what you're doing. Yeah, thank you.
That was my one question, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? I'll move over to open to debate. Councillor Penny.
Again, unless others beg to differ, I don't think there's anything to debate on this one, and happy to move approval as per the recommendation.
Councillor Billings.
I'd be quite happy to join you, Councillor, in seconding this. This is my ward. Very pleased to see the effort that's being put in by officers to bring this scheme forward. Disappointed we didn't get it done in 6 months, but clearly trying to set the tone in motion of trying to get this progressed, and very pleased to second now. So thank you, Chair.
So in front of us, colleagues, on the screen there, we have the officer recommendation, so I'm not going to read all that out. We've just gone through that. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. I declare this application approved, and that ends tonight's